Are you seriously going to eat, you fat blibbity blabbity blob?
I mean, some of you might be like,
Continual.
why would I want to start this?
Sensitive. She's sensitive.
You are listening to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast, where we share stories that are, you guessed it, unscripted.
That's the thing, this journey doesn't stop.
It doesn't really
right?
end. We have a general sense of the topic each episode, but really the whole point is just to show up and be authentic and let our inner child speak its truth.
And I have continued to work through that story of constantly hearing, well, we don't want, got a hot dog on our hands. Yeah, guess what, Mr. Sabatsky, you do.
So I'm so excited that you are here, and it is my hope that you hear yourself somewhere in the story so that way you can feel seen and heard as well. So let's start talking. Welcome to the Tammy Talks Unscripted Healing Podcast. I have an in-person guest with me again this week, and this is a special one because my guest, Faith, is coming from behind the camera and behind my editing to be here with me on my little set. So I'm very excited because you guys have heard me talk about her and how she has saved this podcast in many ways. And it was really cool how today came about. And so it's totally perfect for us and how we have come together that this just came together. So
Yeah.
I will share that, but I just want to welcome you, and you can kind of share a little bit about you and who you are and what you do, and then we'll dive in because this is the most unscripted episode yet, guys. I really reached out to her yesterday. I was like, "Hey, got an opening. You want to hop in?" And she's like,
and this is what I did. I'm in my house. You text me.
Yeah.
And you're like, unless you want to come and record. And I was like, first I was like, yeah. And then I was like, oh. And I was like, oh my gosh. No. Went into the other room and I started doing some things and I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm like, yes, you are.
Yeah.
It was just like, I don't know. It was a weird feeling. And I said, you know what? This is happening for a reason.
"Huh?"
Whatever didn't work out this week where you had the opening available.
Yeah.
I was like, you are being pushed to do what you said you wanted to do. And she's a gift. Like, you're such a gift to me. And to be able to do this is like, well, this is all perfect. It's exactly happening the way it's supposed to. And it's like, oh, yeah. And I've done this before with other people, but you're such a perfect person to do this with in this way. This is different.
Yeah.
And I said, well, yeah, of course you're going to do it. Like, we're supposed to be doing this now.
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah.
However it turns out. So thank you.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Well, a way to seize the opportunity. And again, because she edits all the podcasts, she knows that last week I talked about stepping into your main character energy, which she's like, okay, this is me doing this. And I was like, so what happened? Because you had actually messaged me that you're going to be out of town like Wednesday through Saturday, right?
Right.
She's like, hey, if you need to edit your episode, just FYI. And I was like, oh no, this is perfect. The universe has got my back because I'm supposed to record on Monday, which rarely happens. And who I had set up messaged me, Sunday night and was like, I'm not ready. And I was like, okay. And I didn't I didn't stress about it. I didn't worry about it because I didn't want her to feel bad. I'm like, I don't want to push you into this. Like, this is a vulnerable space. And if you're not ready, you're not ready. And I'm not about to push someone into that. I totally respected that. And I knew that a group of women that I did the inner child healing retreat with in April, we were going to all get together and have a little Zoom call, a little reunion. I was like, oh, I could use that. But as I'm texting you, like, hey, by the way, that's not going to happen until Thursday. And that's when I had not even thought about reaching out to you about doing that. And literally until I sent that text. So like, unless you want to do it.
Oh my God.
Right. So I love
No, I didn't step up. I kind of like crawled. And I was like, girl, what is your problem? And I realized it's just another manifestation of what I've been working through, getting uncomfortable. When all this time you would think, well, isn't she comfortable doing this kind of thing? She does this for work. I do video production for businesses, right? That's what I've been doing for 7, 8 years. But I ran into something over the last few years, and this is kind of like a conclusion to that. I feel like this is literally the closure to that, especially going into this trip that I'm going on this week, because it's going to be more of that too. A lot of inner work.
Yay.
Yeah. So I feel like, well, this is exactly happening because this is the addition to that.
Oh,
And
I love that.
it's just all so perfect now that I look at it from 10,000 feet. like, yeah, this is such a gift. It's so because it's making me step into my power in a way that I hadn't before and just go with it and have fun for God's sakes.
Yeah. This is literally a conversation. And she was over here a couple weeks ago while I was showing off my new fancy equipment that we just had a headache with for a second there. And we ended up just talking for an hour and a half. I'm like, that's literally what I want this to be, is just that conversation and how easily it was for us to talk and share. And what's been so cool is like I literally just met you in April, but I feel like I have known you my entire life. And it's like when you find those people, it's stuff like this, it does flow. And so I'm so grateful.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for saying that because I felt the same way about you. And I thought, gosh, this is a time something is happening in the world and the
Yeah.
universe, in my life, where I feel like things are falling away in ways that I didn't expect.
Yeah.
But they're being filled by, I'm literally being aligned with more and more people that I vibe with.
Yeah.
And like things are just happening faster and easier. And you're one of them. Like you were definitely meant to come into my life. I feel so comfortable with you. I feel seen and heard by you, and I trust you. And because you get it, and said, yeah, I needed her in my life. And Andrea brought us together.
Shout out to Andrea.
Honest to God. And I said, oh my gosh, this is, I'm seeing it now. I'm trying to look at it like a movie.
Yeah.
If you just really step back and say, why are certain things happening? Because there's discomfort going on in there
Oh,
too.
yeah.
It's not all easy.
No. Nope.
And if I really try to just like look at it as from my higher self perspective, right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing in that, and it just feels really good. So yeah, it's really, but it takes work to get there.
Yeah.
And I feel like I never really talked about, or I never looked into the inner child thing before meeting you. That wasn't something that was on my radar. That's not anything I listened to in the past. And I said, oh, she's been put into my life for me to look at that because you helped me to remember things that keep replaying in my brain. And I said, well, why do they keep replaying in your brain? Because during a certain part of my adulthood, I didn't think that was a thing. Like, I didn't have to think about finding my voice or showing up and being visible. I didn't feel like that was a difficulty for me in my 20s and 30s and even 40s.
Yeah.
So I'm a little older now.
She doesn't look it.
But what's fascinating is that, because I'm older now, I'm overthinking things, overanalyzing things, forgetting things that brought me joy in the past.
Yeah.
And you just kind of brought that all back around to me. So thank you so much. And I've been able to come to terms with things that like, oh, wow, okay, I get it now. And it's okay. It's part of the human experience. And it's going to even allow me to even help people even more with video. So I used to say, okay, I love helping businesses with video because I get it. I used to own a brick and mortar business years ago. So I understand there's challenges, sales, marketing, social media, video, whatever. I understand all the hats you have to wear when you own a business. But then after I'd been doing that work for a couple of years going into it, I said, okay, I need to make more videos promoting my own self, my own business. And when I sat down for the first few times in front of the camera, I was like, what's wrong with me that I can't do this? I felt like I couldn't speak. I felt like my throat chakra was blocked. I felt like I didn't like the way I looked. I didn't like the way I sounded. And I said, what is that all about? What are you doing? Why can't you do this? It's because I was identifying with an old profession, an old identity that I was in. I was in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
So I resonated with that identity for so many years, since I was 19 years old.
Yeah.
And then coming back around to being in front of a lens and seeing the changes. And I wasn't accepting the changes. I wasn't accepting myself being older, being heavier. I would joke, oh, I'm 20 years older, 20 pounds heavier. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And I'm judging myself for that. And I'm negating all the stuff that I experienced in my life because of how I'm showing up now. So I wasn't allowing myself to show up and be visible.
Yeah.
And that was paralyzing.
Yeah.
And so I just did it anyway. So I got on camera and I filmed some things to promote my business, but no one knew that I was doing it. So I was so uncomfortable and so judgmental.
Yeah.
and so cruel. And I bullied myself internally. No one else did that to
Right.
me.
Yeah, because anyone else, I mean, for those of you that are listening, if you were watching on YouTube, like, she's gorgeous. Just glowing, and like no one would ever know that you weren't this confident goddess walking around, because that is the energy that you give off. And so that's, I find it so fascinating how we are so good at masking up our insecurities and putting on the front that we need to when we're at work or when we're out and about. But yeah, when all of a sudden you're watching yourself back on camera, oh man, ego comes out and just tears you apart. But yeah, we become our own bully.
Yeah. The whole social media comparison thing.
Oh yeah.
Comparison is a thief of joy. Well, I don't look like this, or I don't look like how I felt.
Yeah.
That was the thing, because I
Yeah.
identified so much with my body
Yeah.
back then. And I felt like, well, that was me. I am my body, right?
Yeah.
That's what I look like. That's how I move in the world. That was my life. That was my joy. And when that stopped, or I stopped it to go in a different direction, um, I felt the same on the inside. And then when I saw the outside, so wait, oh, I don't identify with this body.
Yeah.
This is not the body I'm um, familiar with.
Right.
So going through, getting older and seeing your body change, that comes with age. But do we have some control over some things? Yes. So I still stay active. I still
Yeah.
stay as strong as I can possibly. Um, but now, talking to you and thinking more about it every single day, I say, okay, thank you for that experience, because so many women are going through that.
Yeah.
And they're not in media for
Right.
work. They're feeling a certain way for whatever reason. Now I can identify with more women on a new level.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, I get it. I know what it's like to feel over 40, over 50, and dealing with the changes and not beating yourself up about it, and actually representing
Yeah.
and celebrating how far you've come in your life. So
Right.
I've, pulled myself along to get to that place. But because I'm getting reflected back comments from you and comments from other people that are just like gifts to me, I'm like, oh, thank you so much for saying that. Because I said to you the other day, I said, I don't see that in this. I'm not wearing the same glasses you are, I think.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing things in the same filter
Yeah.
as people on the outside of me.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you need to receive that, like you said.
Yeah.
And receive it, accept it, and get back to that self-love that you used to have as a younger woman, and bring that into this woman's life now.
Yeah.
But it's not without a lot of
oh man.
struggle and tears. And you are such a trailblazer leading that way, in the way that you do. Because I feel like you were put into my life to be a mirror for, like, oh, I used to be that body. I used to be that fit. And I was criticizing myself for not being that
Right.
anymore.
Right.
I said, well, why are you doing that? So,
Yeah. Well, and it's funny even hearing you say that, and just how I was telling you to receive the compliment that I and this other woman are giving you. I had literally the same experience this morning. I was sitting down with Elle, the head trainer, and Andrea, we were talking, and she was just talking about like the energy that I bring there, and that like people were excited to work out with me, or just the energy. And I had a hard time receiving that. And it brought me back to, I know when I came in there, I didn't want to be the new kid, like hot dog that keeps coming back. Like this was this reoccurring thing. Like I didn't want to come in there with that energy. And so I did, like, I kind of covered back up. And I remember this feeling, like I put my, long shirt back on in the first workout. And I had that moment of like, no, like we are not going back to that girl who is playing small to make other people feel comfortable. Like I have worked too damn hard to get to this place where I feel confident in my body, and I'm not apologizing for that anymore. So I remember halfway through the workout, like I took that off and I was like, I'm back in my sports run. And I know it seems like such a silly thing, but it's such a huge thing for me. And then to hear that back, that it isn't necessarily this intimidation thing or that people are perceiving me as a hot dog. It was more like, no, you're actually inspiring people. And if they actually knew more of your story versus, oh, she's just always had it easy, she's just always looked that way. Like, oh, no. Like it's been a lot of work. But I think you're right. Like we need to kind of shine that light. And if you're in this space now of, hey, I'm this woman in her 50s and I'm at this space where I'm learning to love this version of me all over again, that's really powerful. And yeah, a lot of women need to hear that.
yeah. And I think that's the biggest difference with you, because if you didn't share your story all this time, how you have been, and being so transparent about all the iterations and all the things that you've worked through, thank God that you've done that, because people make assumptions.
Yeah.
They see one person, they say, oh, yeah, it's easy for her. She doesn't have any struggles. She's always been an athlete. You know, she's younger, whatever.
Yeah.
You make so many assumptions. You think you know by just if I didn't
Right.
know you and I saw you just come in to the studio and you just started working out, I'd know nothing about you and I would have all these preconceived notions like, oh yeah, she's been in this for a year. She's never had any food issues, anything.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've been so transparent and shared so much through every episode, it's like, oh, thank you so much, because it just helps us to feel more connected.
Yeah.
We don't feel alone. We know, oh, she's had her share of struggles and she works on it every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day. And then when people say this back to me, like, you'd never know that you've had any.
Yeah.
Like, well, I didn't sometimes and I did sometimes, but I've never shared it. And I said, okay, I'm going to allow myself to share that a little bit more, because
Yeah.
it's not been easy for me. Like, I pivoted from a completely different career into this new one and took on that different professional identity. But now I know that was for a reason.
Right.
I didn't know it at the time,
Yeah.
but now I get it.
Well, and I love, and we can dive into more of your story and how that all happened, but I love kind of this evolution. And when we really do look back at the story of our lives, you can start to see how it all unfolds and how you were put in these certain situations to learn these lessons, to heal these wounds, because deep down, there's always probably been this fear of maybe being seen or being accepted or being heard. But now in this new role, it's requiring a whole new level of you to heal that. Like, you wouldn't be in this position and doing the work that you're doing now if it wasn't meant for you to heal that yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same here.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like, one thing I'm remembering now that I'm bringing through was when I first started trying to get back on camera for myself, I had to think about my voice. I don't like my voice. I was saying to myself, right? But then other people were saying to me, I love your voice because it's soothing, you're comforting, I feel so comfortable with you, and we film together, whatever. I like listening to you. And I said, okay, I'm going to receive that.
Yeah.
But also, I would do like meditations about healing my throat chakra,
Yeah.
allowing me to speak more in the times that I didn't feel comfortable speaking. And I said, okay, where did that come from? Because
Right.
back in the day when I was in my 30s, I was on television
Yeah.
and I loved speaking on a microphone in fitness classes, and I would have that big voice and I loved that. I never thought twice about that.
Right.
I said, so what is that now? Why now?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I think back, when you're bringing up the inner child stuff,
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I remember being the first time I ever heard anything about my voice was I was in second grade and we were singing, and the teacher said, she pulled me aside away from the other kids, like a little off to the side. And she said, oh, Faith, you sound like a foghorn.
Oh.
And I was like, what? And it was just a casual off the cuff remark. She was joking. I don't think she was trying to be cruel. And
You remember that?
you remember that? And I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I don't think that ever wounded me, because growing up as an adult, I thought, oh, I'm fine. I'm going to go on television, back then. Like, oh, well, that piece is kind of stuck in there.
Oh, yeah.
Is that interesting?
Well, and that's just it. And I tell people, like, there's a reason you remember that one specific moment or like everything about it in detail, because that was, again, those core memories. Something in that moment shifted. That's when ego was like, that hurt. I don't want to feel that again. We better package this up and make sure that we silence your voice. And it maybe doesn't going to show up until you're in your 50s, but that wound is very much there. And there's a reason you remember that.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I think
Fascinating.
it's so important to do this work, because when you have these reoccurring themes that come up, to me, it's your inner child knocking on the door. It's like, are you ever going to pay attention to this? Are you ever going to heal this? Like, hello. And the way I described it, and it always like breaks my heart to think of this, but really, like, this is what the work that we're doing is. Ego has put our inner child like in the basement and saying, you stay down here. It's safer down here. Away from all the people who are going to criticize you and judge you, make fun of you. You stay down here. I'll go up here. I'll be the people pleaser. I'll be the good girl. I'll be this. I'll do that for you. You stay down here where it's safe. Well, your inner child's like, why have you forgotten about me? Why does anyone know that I'm down here? Like, there was all these things that brought me joy. Like, I don't get to experience those down here. He was like, but I'm taking care of it up here. Like, and eventually your inner child starts banging on the door. And that's when we feel triggered. That's when we throw those tantrums. That's when, like, we get emotional out of nowhere, or you have these big moments in your life where it's like, whoa, it's because your inner child is now like kicking on the door, like, Faith, it is time to heal this once and for all. Like and then what's so beautiful about it is when you envision like you now, adult Faith, like opening that basement door and like letting her out and be like, come with me.
Yeah.
Come with me into this work that I'm doing now. Like, I want to use your voice. I want you to like, and that's where like when you bring your inner child into the work that you're doing and experience joy again, like that changes everything. So it's like, oh, it's so cool to see you doing that.
Yeah. And the other thing that you're bringing up for me right in this moment too is I think the hardest thing for my inner child was my earliest memories were comparison.
Yeah.
There's no social media back then, but I remember being in grade school comparing myself to the other kids because I went to a private Catholic grammar school. What do they call it now? Elementary school, grammar school. I think they call it grammar school.
Yeah.
I don't know. but before middle school.
Yeah.
And so it was wealthier families that could pay for private school with the uniforms.
Oh, yeah.
And my parents didn't have that kind of money. My mother worked her butt off as a nurse. My father was a court officer in the family court system. They worked hard.
Yeah.
They did not make a ton of money. So for them to put me in a private school was huge for them.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure for a kid too, if you like pick up on that.
So I remember, I think at like third grade, thinking about comparing myself to the other kids and having that feeling like the other kids are better than me because they come from more well-to-do families, like more funny. And I came from a great family. So I was happy with my parents. I had a great childhood in that way, but it was the money thing.
Yep.
Always comparing myself. And that comparison thing did follow me into adulthood when I got into the fitness industry.
Yeah.
And I put myself out there as a presenter and I was comparing myself to the other presenters being on stage.
Yeah.
And I brought myself to the point where I could get on stage and I could get on television shows and do all that, but the comparison monster was still always there. So now you fast forward to this now and I come back around to something that's so visual and social media and cruel people, bully people. Is it, oh, okay, that's where that comes from too, because you started comparing yourself to other people when you were a child.
Yep.
So pushing through that and saying, no, I am not going to do that to myself anymore. No one's doing that to you. Why are you doing that to yourself? How could you be so hard on yourself when you've worked so hard to live such a good life and to do such good things in the world? And you're being your own worst enemy. My parents didn't talk to me like that. I've never had friends talk to me like that. Where did that come from? How can you speak to yourself that way? Oh, your ego.
Yeah. And what it amazes me, and I think this is where I have such a better relationship with my ego now, is because I can see, like, I see how you were trying to protect me. Like, you were just trying to make me smaller because smaller felt safer. But smaller also meant that I was my own bully. Like, it would kind of, beat me down in a sense. It would speak so negatively to me. But it was like coming from that place of love, which is so twisted, right? No wonder we get into toxic relationships. We have a toxic relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's like ego's like, yeah, but I was trying to protect you from that second grade. Like, yeah, but I'm a grown ass adult right now. And I don't need this.
Right. I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a mind.
Yeah.
It messes with your mind.
It does.
You know,
you can start. I think the key, or what can really like help accelerate this journey for people, is when you can start to hear it as, oh, that's ego. Like, or that's my inner child. And you had commented on something I had posted in my stories about dancing. And so for those of you that, if you're listening for the first time, you can go back and watch, I don't know what episode it was. I was talking about dancing. And maybe it wasn't, I don't know. It was like in one of my stories or a post or a podcast. But I started a contemporary dance class like 8 weeks ago because my inner child has always loved to dance. And I danced on my high school dance team, this is a very small town. Like, our schools had to consolidate. So when I say high school dance team, I'm talking like we watched a VHS tape and, learned the dance from there. But I loved to dance. So then, maybe you dance in college when you go out and that kind of stuff. But then after that, like, that was it. I stopped. Maybe I danced in the kitchen here and there, but then that even stopped. And it wasn't until like in the last years, I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot how much I love to dance. And so, and I watch my daughter dance, and I'm like, it's not enough for me to live vicariously through her anymore. Like, this is something my inner child wants me to do. This is something like I need to express myself in this way. And so I took this class And she had us do our last class of this 8 weeks. She's like, I'm going to have you guys do your own thing. I'm going to turn the lights down and I'm going to play 3 different like styles of music. And I just want you to dance. And initially I was like, what? But I was like, no, this is cool because I know that that's how I dance now. Like I just hear the music and I just move and I don't judge it. So I was like, I'm not going to do that here. So I quickly had to be like, is it ego? You're not welcome here. And so I did, and I danced and everything. Well, when it came to like creating the little video of it, because I always kind of share that stuff on social media, I was like, my ego was screaming, like, people are gonna look at this and laugh and think, like, oh my gosh, Tammy, like you think you can dance? And
Oh,
yeah, it was terrible that night. And I was just, I knew what was happening, and I was like, I'm gonna like sleep on this, really work through this in the morning and posted it. But what was interesting is that after we had done that, our instructor, she's like, hey, pick a song. And she was going to dance to it. And it was like, oh my gosh, beautiful. Like I had goosebumps. I was in tears and I'm watching her. And what you had commented on is in my stories, I had posted, ego would say, you can never dance like her. Why even bother? Whereas my inner child is like, who cares? I just like to dance. And then my highest self was like, how you dance is beautiful. Both versions are beautiful. And if you love to do it, do it. And I think when you can start to hear like which is which,
yeah.
you can quickly catch ego
Yeah.
and start to not talk back to it, but to be like, I understand what you're doing right now, but I don't need you. Like, I got you.
Yeah.
Like, I want Faith to be heard now. I want her to be seen now. And you need to let me do that. Like, kind of having that, because it's protection for that little girl. But ego does it in a really shitty way.
Yeah. Yeah. Every time I have a thought that leans toward that, I go back to the word ego. I said,
Yeah.
okay, what's happening right now? Your ego is reacting. What would your higher self say? And does that brings you back to who you really are
Yeah.
and what the truth really is? And does that feel good? Yes. Then you need to go with that. And so
Yeah.
recognizing it, like looking at yourself like a character in a movie,
Yeah.
and recognizing what's happening and say, okay, I'm going to flip this right now. I understand what's happening. I'm going to flip it. But bringing yourself back to what feels good.
Yeah.
Bringing yourself back to your joy, which is another thing that we have in common because I started as a dancer when I was a girl and I let all that go 8 years ago. I can't do any math anymore. But when I made a choice saying, okay, I'm getting older. My career has always been this way.
Yeah.
Am I going to keep going in this way for the next 10 years or 20 years? Or am I going to make a change? And I chose, okay, well, I'm going to shift into what people were asking me for help with, which I didn't know why they were asking me. And I said, well, I'm going to put more of my attention in the business side of things. And I let go of dancing.
Yeah.
And you also reminded me because you went through that experience. Oh, yeah, I let go of that joy too. And since doing that, guess what? My back starts talking to me. I'm in pain all the time. I'm in pain at the studio at workouts for the past 2 years.
Yeah.
I said, why am I in so much pain? I'm working out. I thought I was staying flexible. Oh, I let go of the thing. One of the biggest things that brought me joy, which was fitness in that way,
Yeah.
but also dancing and moving my body. I'm in pain. And I said, oh, my body's talking to me too, because you let go of your joy. That's that's a big part of who you are. Since you were a little girl, you were dancing in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, okay, Tammy's reminding me yet again. Okay, you can get back into dance a little bit, and don't you know, and I go to physical therapy because my husband suggested it and I thought I was too far gone.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, it's too late for me. I'm older now. I'm in so much pain, like I can't be helped. Well, I was wrong. And that has helped me in a way where I'd say, oh, I can dance again, little by little,
Yeah.
but bringing that joy back to the body,
Yes.
remembering, what makes you happy. So that was a great reminder when you posted that because, it's that comparison thing. Oh, I can never dance like her, or I can never look like her again, or I can never look like that again. Well, you love doing those things, inner child.
Yeah.
So ego can step aside, and my higher self knows that you were made to love the things that you love in this life.
Yeah.
So go ahead. And do I care if someone criticizes me? It's like, oh, no, I guess I don't.
Right. Yeah, when you really look at it, it's like, no, I don't, because that's obviously like that's a them thing.
Yes.
And that's what I thought. Like, if anyone's gonna judge my dance was like, would you do this? Would you get out here? Would you post about it? Probably not. So guess what? Like,
Yeah. And then you understand, okay, well, that criticism comes from a different person in a different place. And now you have empathy.
yes, yes.
You're like, oh, that is so great. I don't care if someone has something to say about me or judgment, and that has nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
And they're not my people, or we're just not in that same place in life or same frequency. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. It's okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it hurts sometimes, the ego says, oh, that hurts because I missed that person or I missed that friend or that criticism hurts. But
Yeah.
say, oh, no, no, no. Look at it from above.
Right.
It's all perfect. It's okay.
Well, and when it hurts, like that is a mirror. Like, okay, there's still something for me to work through here. Like, if I'm feeling sad or mad or hurt by something, I need to look at that. Like, that's for me. And that person just reflected it back to me on where I still need to heal.
Mm.
And it's so, you just gave me a full circle moment from this morning with Aria, who was on the podcast last week. We were driving this morning and she went grocery shopping with me yesterday. And out of nowhere, she said, a lot of people were giving me the side eye yesterday yesterday at the grocery store. And I'm like, why? She's like, oh, because I was like hopping around and kind of dancing around, like, which I didn't even notice that. And she's like, I didn't care. And I was like, yes, because there was a while there where she would have, and she wouldn't have done that.
Mm.
And I said to her, I'm like, Ari, like you jumping around like that, it just shows that you're free and that you don't care what people think. And the people that are giving you a side eye, like it's because they're not free. Because and they may not know that, but it's like when you're feeling that, someone may look, like I wish I could jump around like that and not care what anyone thinks. But like ego is like, nope, not you.
Yes.
And so it's like, so see that, like if people are giving you this idea or people are projecting their stuff onto you, it's because they're seeing where you have set yourself free. And there's a part of them that yearns for that and that craves that. They might not see it that way yet.
Yeah.
But I think like that helps me not worry about people's projections or the criticism anymore, because now I know, like, no, if something that I'm doing is like triggering you in a way, there's something in you that's like, oh, I wish I could do that too.
That's a you thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that, like me coming into your life and reflecting some of that back, you didn't go down that road of like, oh, Tammy. It was like, you let it remind you. And it's like your inner child was like, yay, thank you for.
Yeah. Remember how you used to, love to. And she's very, you and other people too. There are other friends in my life who remind me, drink your damn water.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got the thing in the water, It's like those things that I needed to be reminded of. It needed to be put in front of me because I would put myself last for some things. And like, okay, you got to stop doing that.
Yeah.
And allow yourself to be a little selfish and take care of yourself first before you feel like you want to not take care of everybody else, but serve other people before you serve yourself.
Right.
The people pleaser thing.
Yeah.
I never identified myself as a people pleaser until one of my best girlfriends said, yeah, you're a people pleaser. And I was like,
What?
I am. Oh, I just always wanted things to be nice and happy and good. And I want to be there for people and help people and do something that they need. Oh, that's a people pleaser because I would,
you
I wouldn't attend to my own needs in the way that I should.
Well, and take me back to that transition from your fitness career into like getting into video and stuff, or more in the business aspect, because it sounded like when you were telling me that story that it felt like a big old should. Like, I'm getting old. Is this not, you know what I mean? But like,
Older,
older. And like, is this what can I keep in this fitness industry? And it felt like, oh, well, maybe I should go this path because that's what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So while this whole video business thing was happening, it was a side hustle for me because I was working full time at a fitness studio. And I started first as a coach and then I became manager. So then I was doing both. I was manager and coach. And there came a crux with that business to franchise. And they said, okay, managers and coaches are going through this huge global configuration. And you have to choose a track. And I thought, I can't do both tracks because I have to level up to what the company needed and blah, blah, blah. I said, all right, I'm going to have to release my coaching hat so that I can, I'm the manager. I have to do this. I don't want it. I can't do both. It's too much.
Yeah.
So I loved coaching. It was such a joy for me there. I loved it. I would jump up and down and scream on the mic and everything. And I loved it so much. And the studio manager part of it was stressful for me, but it was my job, it was my responsibility.
Yeah.
So that was the moment where I let
Yeah.
go, and I had stopped being anyway, leading any group fitness, anything. And yeah, that was because I thought, okay, this is the realistic track that I should follow
Right.
because I'm getting
Yes.
older. And can I do this in my 50s, 60s, older? Like, oh my gosh, what a silly thing to think of now, because of course you can. There are
Yeah.
tons of people who are doing that. But for me, I thought,
all or nothing.
was that a realistic thing for me to pursue, or to keep going with?
Right.
And yeah, it was kind of like a weird, like little death
Yeah.
in a way, because the connection that I felt, I loved leading those classes. I loved teaching all those classes, but to opt for the realistic business
Yeah.
side, and that's responsibility to myself, to my husband, my family, my job, and that was fine. I wasn't doing it. I wasn't resentful. I made that choice.
Right.
Um, but when to reflect and think back, okay, when did that happen? Where did that happen? And so now, how can you course correct in a way that works for you even better now?
Yeah.
It's yeah, it's an interesting movie to watch, to see how things happen and the way they happen, when they happen, and just get back to that and say, okay, that was then, this is now.
Right.
Are you doing what you want to do now in the way that you want to do it? And if you want to do more, like, do I want to go back to dance? Like, do I want to try dancing again? Maybe. I don't know. There's that Thursday night class, that's going to be hip hop class. And I used to do hip hop. And I know that sounds hard to believe, but we used to teach hip hop every Friday night for 4 years. And that was so much fun. And I said, well, is that realistic? Can you actually do that now, Faith? Really? I don't know. Can you just go and have fun?
Right.
Yeah. Can you just go and have fun?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Right. And like
You
leave
know?
your ego at the door. It's like, I'm not gonna judge how good I am at this or you're in charge. Like, I just want to go have fun and dance. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care.
I'll compare myself to my younger self for sure.
Yeah.
Because I think I was good back then. But you know what? You're alive.
Yeah.
You're strong. You're healthy. You have people in your life who love you. Your life is good. Like, if you're stressed out about taking a dang dance class because you're comparing yourself to, no,
Right.
enjoy your life. This is all we have, this
Right.
present moment, and you never know when things are going to change.
Well, and that's how like ego steals our joy, right? Because like, can you just let me enjoy this? That's what I said in that post. Like, can you just let me enjoy the fact that I got to move like judgment free for those 45 minutes? Can you let me enjoy that?
Mm,
Like, don't take that away from me. And
Yeah.
so it's like, so what if I'm not perfect? Like, I don't care. But I think what you're talking about is so powerful because how many people are in a career like it's I should. And the thing is, like, okay, that may be your reality, and that yes, I do need this job to pay the bills and all those things. But have you completely cut out every other aspect of joy in your life?
Right.
Because if you can even just bring a little bit of that back in,
Yeah.
like you can see how that will start to trickle into
Mhm.
maybe the job that doesn't light you up, but maybe there's other aspects of it that do. But we do this like all or nothing.
Mhm. Yeah.
And that's kind of what you did. Like you just cut it off.
Yeah.
Where it's like if we could have like merged some of that in
Yeah.
in some way. And I think that's like as we get older, there's a quote. I don't remember. I feel like I said it on one of the podcast episodes and I totally butchered it. No, maybe I was said it to you that day when you came to visit about I did. Like you don't get old because you
Oh, yeah.
how does
You don't get, oh, shoot. I can't remember it either.
you don't
You don't get old because you
it's like
stop.
you get old because you stop playing.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
Whoa,
We'll have to look it up. Somebody look it up in the comment. Put it in the comments wherever you're doing this.
But it's because we stop playing, we stop moving.
Yeah.
And I was actually, when I was at the studio this morning and talking to the head trainer, I was kind of emphasizing like we have to get past that coming to exercise is just about burning calories and losing weight and all that stuff. Like our bodies crave movement. We have to move those emotions or they do get stuck. And so I wonder like how much of that for you
Oh,
was like in
Total-
your back
Oh,
and
and
all
that-
those aches and pains, like because you weren't like moving those emotions out. And there was
Yes.
all this suppressed emotions from giving up the things that brought you joy that it was showing up in your physical body as aches and
absolutely.
pains.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And stuckness and weight gain.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely. I recognize that now.
Yeah.
And guess what? That responsibility or that should which I was happy to do, also manifested in stress and bringing that stress home to my family and them seeing me stressed out over work. My husband, my stepson, seeing me at dinner, not barely being present because I was being responsible because my work ethic very strong.
Yeah.
But then not being able to leave it at the door and find my joy in my own house.
Yeah.
And I can't get that time back. And they witnessed me being stressed. So now my husband says, it's so nice to see you happy.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, okay, if I had allowed myself to just loosen the reins a little bit and not be so overly serving to the people I was working for or whatever, and just giving myself what I needed, that would have been a completely different family experience. I wouldn't have been so stressed out walking through the door. I wouldn't have been so preoccupied with work.
Right. And what a classic example of when you even mentioned it before, like taking care of myself, like felt selfish. But in that case, like, no, because when I wasn't taking care of myself at all, it impacted everyone around me. Like it impacted my family.
Yeah.
And it impacted my health to where I couldn't show up in the way that I wanted to. And so it's like, you absolutely have to find a way to bring the base back up, pour into you, and let that overflow. And that feels like that's where you're at right now. I was like, oh my gosh, you finally like, the vase was tipped. I've set it back up. I've patched, some of the cracks in there. And like, now I'm pouring in. And now the rest of us get to like see you with that overflow with energy. And like, now we're all receiving, but you do too. It's not at the sacrifice of yourself anymore. Like that, if people can find that balance and realize, and like, no, you have to pour into yourself first, because it will impact everyone around you at some point, especially yourself.
Yeah. And that also took the form of setting boundaries that I'd never set before.
That's hard for people.
That's hard because I even said this to a dear friend of mine. We've been friends for like 17 years. She knows my history for 17 years, career-wise, personal, everything. And I said, I feel selfish setting those boundaries when I say, I need to take care of this. I need to take care of that. Someone else needs me too. So I need to set up a boundary over here so I can help this person. I felt so selfish doing that. And I said, no, I feel really good. I know I'm doing what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I feel so bad. Like my ego feels so bad that I'm letting someone else down possibly.
Right.
But this is the right thing to do in this moment. And to say, no, this is good. You're taking care of yourself in a way that you hadn't before.
Yeah.
And it felt very different. But I said, no, that's very healthy and it's good. And if someone questions me, I can say, this is what needed. This is what was needed in the moment. And, just, taking care. If you don't take care of yourself first, like, don't put on your own oxygen mask.
There's a reason that is.
And if it was your own child, you would do that for your child, right? It's like, well, I got to do it for myself too.
Right.
So coming to terms with that and being more and more comfortable with that. And that's why I feel so excited now. Like, so just to be in this new, this different phase of my life and say, oh my God, F it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm still responsible. You can still rely on me for things. I'll still be a professional with my work, but I will absolutely say I have to go whatever. Do this thing.
Yeah.
And I'm very fortunate in that I have a husband who supports me in that. So I do have this support system that not everybody has.
Yeah.
So I do recognize that. Like, there's a lot of things I probably wouldn't be able to do if it wasn't for him.
Well, and I don't.
His support, and he understands my quirks.
Yeah. But I also think rather than just being like, you're lucky to have that, like, no, like you had to follow intuition and guidance and all those things to even find him. And if people are in a situation where they're not surrounded by support, that's for you. Like there's a reason that you're in that situation. And Sue on last week's episode, talked about like being in a toxic relationship because she was a people pleaser and wasn't speaking up for herself. And it took a lot for her to find her voice. And so, I mean, this is where that hard work comes in, is because you find yourself in that situation, like eventually you're going to have to make a choice. And like you had said, there was this part of me that kind of died off, the part of you that had joy. Well, I was in a situation where I was like, if I don't do this, I'm going to have to let the part of me that wants to live and dance and like all of this experience, these other things die. I was literally going to say, highest self, I'm sorry you're not invited to this party. This is the way I have to live my life because this is how everyone wants me to. Like I was facing that version of it. And I think like for people to really look at their situation, and if you're not happy in it, if you're not surrounded by the people, like,
Yeah.
and that's where this gets really hard. And that's where a lot of people, you decide whether you're going to move forward on this journey or you're going to stay where you're at. And
Right.
it's a real hard decision.
Making those really tough decisions. Yeah.
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 It's not luck.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I waited a long time to get married.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and you two are just like,
And he's the absolute perfect person for me.
my
But I
gosh.
waited. I, that's part of me when I was younger. I didn't care what other people thought that I wasn't getting married during the ages. People get
Yeah.
married in their 20s, their 30s. I didn't care about getting married. I was in other relationships and I was fine with them, but I wasn't trying to get married. And he came into my life at the perfect time. So I got married later in life,
Yeah.
but it was the perfect.
yeah.
And so, there was no, but those were also decisions that were made along the way. Well, am I going
Right.
to stay with this person? Am I going to stay with that person?
Right.
So yeah, making those tough choices.
Because even in some of those situations, it's like, well, I'm with this person, like I should get married or I
Right.
should stay or
I
I,
should stay with them.
yeah. And that's
Yeah.
even what Sue said. She's like, well, I'm a good Catholic girl. Like you stay married, you figure this out, you do everything you can. When inside she was screaming, like, no, you wouldn't want this for your daughters, you know?
Right.
So yeah, I mean, again, that's where it gets real hard for people to have to take a hard look at their life and like, is this what I want? Am I willing to make those changes? And oftentimes there's a part of us that kind of has to, one way or another, right?
Yeah.
Something's got to give. But yeah,
Yeah.
you two, you can tell you are like totally each other's person. And I love both of you so much. And I love working out next to you guys. And I always joke with Heath that like we were cut from the same cloth because he's just like, I don't know how to not give 100%. And I'm like, I know. So I like, we
Right.
just feed off each other's energy.
Yeah.
And so like, if you're ever visit F45 and you get a chance to work out with Heath, like get ready because the dude brings it.
Yeah. That's one of his joys.
Yes.
He loves that he's not doing anything to impress anybody or try to look a certain way. He's literally being his authentic self.
Yeah.
Loving every second of challenging himself.
Yeah.
He loves the physical challenge of it. He likes competitiveness in a way because he was in sports,
Yeah.
So he likes it when you look at your heart rate stuff on the wall. And it's so funny because in a lot of ways, he and I are so opposite in different ways. I always used to joke that he's my rock
Yeah.
and I'm the balloon that's tied, or the kite or whatever that's tied to the rock. And it keeps me grounded or like keeps me from flying away. But I'm like, you know what? I am so much more and more grounded. I can ground myself now too because I've learned from him.
Yeah.
I know when to, stop being the kite and to
I
ground
love
and
that.
come back to 3D reality. But thank you for saying that, because it's definitely it's we work to have a good marriage. We work to understand each other. We work to be respectful, and that's not easy for everybody. So we don't take that for granted.
Yeah.
I do not take him for granted. And so we're just meant to be together, but it took a while to get to that person.
Yeah.
So the timing, kind of that surrender and trust thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You know,
I remember when I was just like, oh my gosh, I love you two together, because he had posted on his Instagram because you had must set like a new goal or something like that. And so his big thing is like lawn care and lines in the lawn. And he like designed a bullseye for you.
Yes.
With the lines in the yard. I was like, oh my
if he loves doing that lawn as much as he does, and he likes making patterns, I'm going to enjoy that. And it's so fun because he'll make a new pattern every time. And I'm like, you know what? Good for you. That's so
Right.
fun.
That
And I'm like, I'm going to use that little bullseye as like a labyrinth. And
yeah. Oh my gosh. You can bullseye. I love that too, because that is something like that brings him joy.
Yeah.
Like me, I could care less about lawn lines and all that stuff. It's like you can tell how much he loves it and it brings him joy, and he like makes it a thing.
mm-hmm. You know what I think though too is happening though, which I think I've said to him before. That's his Zen, that's his yoga, that's his grounding, because he's barefoot in the grass a lot. He's in the grass, he's in nature. That's his way of spending time in nature. So like that's what that helps to keep. I mean, he's come from a great family and they're grounded people to begin with, but I think that's playing a little part of it too. It's like I go to yoga, we meditate, whatever we do, we go dance. That's his thing. He used to play baseball. People go play golf, that's his thing. And I'm like, you know what? I will never complain about that.
Yeah.
People think it's kind of funny or whatever. I'm like, it's great.
There's a gentleman at the gym that I've always talked to, and he doesn't have kids, but he's kind of like that cool uncle. But he would talk about like kind of like the toys that he would have and stuff. And I was like, do you realize like how much you're bringing out your inner child and don't even know it? And he was just like, I never even thought about it that way. He's like, but you're right. I used to love cars growing up or whatever. And I think about that. Like sometimes we make fun of people's hobbies and stuff like that. It's like, you have no idea like how that could be bringing out, or like when people are playing, or even like any of that stuff.
Right.
It's like,
You don't know what that's actually doing on a subconscious level.
right.
Yeah.
And again, if you're judging that, it's likely because you're not doing enough of those things yourself.
Right. You're not doing the things that you love.
Right.
Or
You're
whatever.
not playing. You're not, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's one of those like, ooh, put the mirror back on, but like we don't like to look.
Yeah. It's not easy. I feel like I can speak from a place of comfort now
Yeah.
because I've allowed myself to go there, and I've allowed to like go into like do guided meditations with people, or like do some self-study, like really try to do the inner work. Some people go to, a traditional therapist,
Yeah.
coaches, whatever helps you to kind of
Right.
work through it,
Yeah.
is I think the end all be all. Like you can't do it alone.
Right.
It's like, oh, easy to talk about now because I feel like it's like, and we never completely come to the other side of it either. There's always going to be something.
Yeah.
There's always going to be something else. It's not like it never really ends. I think
Right.
it's just trying to just navigate it.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, and I think it's important too to find out what works for you and not put it in a box that it has to look a certain way. You're right. Like some people like therapy isn't for them, or maybe a coach is, or all the different aspects. And I actually, one of the women that hopefully like she'll be back on the podcast at some time, but her big thing right now is there's a lot of things that have helped her, but none of them like coincide. They're all very much like she, has her faith in God. Well, that makes her, but she's also like very curious about this spirituality thing. So there's this religion and spirituality thing where it's like, wait a second, whereas like she resonates with both very deeply, but questions that. And then there's, like a 12-step program and how like that doesn't really jive with religion. And so she feels like she has to box each of these things up and can only talk about this and this group and this and that group. And she's getting to the place where she's realizing like, wait, I think my journey is that I'm supposed to bring them all together. And I'm maybe supposed to share how I pulled something from this and from that. And it all worked for me versus it has to be this way.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the whole thing. I feel like everything we're going through or been through, it's so that we can share it and relate it with someone who's going through it after the fact. It's like, okay, thank you for bringing me through this gift. And some of the gifts are horrible in the moment, like my mother passing away, like that. No one wants to go through that again. Everybody's going to go through it sometime. But going through the passing of my mom 17 years ago and going through the grief process and just going through what that all was like, now you can come on this and be there for the next person and say, yes, I understand, and I can even at least be an ear, if anything else. So yeah, being the next person. Okay, I'm going through something that seems new, but it's on purpose so that I can help whoever's behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great.
And there's no coincidence that now you are going into that next phase to be able to show women where you're at in your life, like, hey, like it's okay and necessary for you to love this version of you and to show up as this version of you and to love this version of you because of what it's been through, like this body and what it's been through. And now to even look at it is like, I understand why you had the aches and pains before. I can understand why maybe you're holding on to more weight because we weren't moving you and expressing you in the way that you wanted. Like I can have love and compassion for my body now.
Yeah.
It's like now I want to do those things to honor you and rather than like being mad at our body about it.
Right. Yeah. Being angry about it, being resentful, like, well, I'm working so hard. How come I gained 20 pounds? I'm a lazy person, just being angry about it. And so now I said, okay, the next iteration is like, okay, now that I know what that feels like and I'm in this video business, so how can I make that serve even better? Because it's like, I can perform the tasks and do the thing and do a project for someone. Like, but I could do that before. Like, I knew how to set up lights and cameras, and I knew how to edit, and I knew how to do all these things, and I could do it, but I couldn't get on camera myself and speak. Even though I knew how to do everything, I couldn't speak. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, what is the whole purpose behind all this is to help any other person out there who needs that kind of support because I know what that feels like now. So, oh, okay, I get it. I had to struggle. You can't, you have to go through the experience first.
Well, and if people could see that, like, no, that is that has been like the gift wrapped in the painful package of like, oh my gosh, I had to heal this in order to help other people. Like, say for me, like all the stuff with emotional binge eating and gaining 40 pounds and using exercise as punishment and having to heal all these childhood wounds. Like, I now know, like, oh my gosh, all of those were gifts for me, like things that I had to work through so I could be able to show other people how to do it. And if I didn't have those experiences, like, yeah, I could go get a degree and but to live through that and to move through that and to experience that, like that's a
Exactly.
whole different level of teaching and understanding and depth that you don't get. Like I have a master's degree in nutrition. That honestly,
And for some people, that's all you need. You know, I have the knowledge, I have the information, I have the knowledge, I can help people.
it was never knowledge that helped people connect with me and open up to me and so I could actually help them. It was never about that. It was never about me spewing all the fancy things that I knew. It was when I got real about, hey, I've been there too. Like I ate entire pizzas in my car.
Yeah.
Like
And I remember I remember hearing that from you for the first time. And I thought, yes, that's the kind of stuff that I needed to hear. Thank you for sharing that because she's been there. She understands. I'm not alone in that. I know what that feels like. And there's so much more credibility isn't the word, but like authority from experience.
yeah.
Right. You've lived through it and you've gotten to the other side and you're the work of art that's come out of that. And who would not follow that? You know, as painful as that was and as hard as that was, the fact that you shared that and teach that all the time or just tell those stories all the time, so good. So good. And that's why I said, okay, I'm going to allow myself to talk about things that I never really talked about before just because people didn't, I would never share it before. And I'm like, well, no, it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to show. I was never afraid to cry in front of people. I was in business with someone many years ago and she never wanted to cry in front of people because I think her perception was crying was a form of weakness.
Yeah.
And I never felt that way. I always feel like, you know, that you're strong in that you can show your vulnerability. You can show the soft side and you can show that things are hard for you because it's hard for all of us. We can all relate to each other if we just let that down. And I feel like we're at a time in history now where it's so celebrated to do that. It's like, oh God, kids are learning this now.
Yeah.
Kids are having conversations and hearing things from adults that we didn't hear.
Right.
How many years ago?
Right.
The fact that you talked about that to Aria, like, yes, Aria, do your thing. And who cares about the side eye? Like before, parents would say, kind of pull her back.
Right.
You know,
Don't do that in public.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
What
it's
a
usually like
gift.
I'm the one honking that at me in the dark in the grocery store. But
What a gift you've given your children. And now the ripple effect of all of that and what you're doing now and encouraging others to do the same, you know? And I also think it's part of it. Is it like a regional thing too? Like if we lived in New York versus Midwest, it's a different kind of allowing yourself to be that expressive, right? Because in Midwest, people are a little more reserved, right? And that's okay. But I think so many generations, you know, because me coming from New York, I'm originally from the East Coast. I was a lot more.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think I pulled a little bit of that energy being in the Midwest for these last 17 years. I just kind of pulled myself dimmed a little bit where I never thought about that before I moved here.
Wow.
You know?
That's interesting.
Yeah. I never thought of it that way. But it's like,
you know, less conditioned.
A little bit. You know, kitty wampus. I say words that I never used to say. And whatever. Things that were very different. I was a lot more because
that makes total sense.
When you're from the East Coast, you're from living in New York City where anything goes almost.
Yeah.
And then Midwest is just a little quieter.
That makes so much sense. Like hearing your story now, like, gosh, like, because I was incredibly insecure in my 20s and 30s.
Oh, yeah.
And kind of flipped that. Whereas yours was like, I was like, but that makes total sense now.
Yeah.
It's like you just got conditioned to
kind of
we are here.
Calm down.
Yeah. When really, you're right. This is kind of the time where it feels like we are now being called to shine our light more and be the one who's dancing around and showing people like what it's like to be free. And hey, you can be too. Like, that's what I told Ari. Like, we need people like you out there jumping around in the grocery store and having fun and showing people what that's like and remembering, because what she's doing is helping people remember. When I do that, I'm helping people remember. And that's like that's going and opening that basement door and letting your inner child be like, hey,
It's okay. Come back
it's
up.
all
Like, tell me,
remind me what you used to love to do. Like, I want to do some more of that. Like, I had a neighbor who like used to do art and all of those things and then had a terrible experience with an art teacher. Well, shut it all down. But now she's in her 60s and she's creating the most beautiful art. Like, I'm like, you're my neighbor? And you like,
wow.
so it's amazing. But it was that one moment that shut her down. Like, nope, I'm not doing this anymore because it was judged and criticized once. And it took her, and it, like, hearing some of the stuff that I was doing and going through, like, it started to kind of help her remember. And now she's just dove into it like full force and creating some of the most beautiful art. So that
So
was
great.
always in her. She just needed to remember. She just needed to open the basement door and be like, come back up here. Your art is worthy just because you're creating it. Like, there's no right or wrong way to do art. Like, I tell my kids that all the time because he flipped out because he didn't have a perfect D this weekend making grandma's birthday card. And I was like, Arlo, like, that's what makes it unique and special. Like, she's gonna remember that D looking a little funky, 10 years from now versus if it looked perfect.
Yep.
Yeah. So share a little bit about, because the reason I wanted to have her on this podcast is because she does have some exciting news about where things are heading and being more visible. And so share what what stepping out is looking like and how things are
Well,
changing for you.
what occurred to me was I said, okay, there's so many people who say to me, I don't like how I am on video. I don't like how I look. I don't like how it sounds. Yet today, someone else said that to me, like, I know I need to be making more video for my business. I just can't do it. And I thought, well, shoot, I know how that discomfort feels. And I know
Yeah.
how I got through it and the tricks that I did to play with the social media algorithm to say, okay, I'm going to do a video, but I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it in the way that works for me. I'm not going to do video in the way that you think you're supposed to do it. Like you said, it's art.
Yeah.
There's no one way that you're supposed to do video. You can do it how it works for you.
Right.
And I said, well, how did it work for me? Well, I dipped my toe in the water and I did faceless videos, things like that.
Yeah.
So I put together a whole thing. So I said, okay, my whole struggle was personally forcing myself to get out of my own way and be more visible. And that word just hit me.
Uh-huh.
And I said, okay, people want to maybe try to do things themselves, but they feel alone or they feel isolated. And I know how that feels,
Uh-huh.
sitting in your own place all by yourself, and you don't feel like you feel so alone, even though you're trying to connect with people.
Yep.
And it's such a dichotomy, such an irony. And I said, okay, I'm going to teach people how to do it for themselves, however they want to learn. So that can be one-on-one, that can be in a group. It's the visible coaching group, right?
Yeah.
And I want to encourage, because I know that I appreciate that from you. And so many other women that I know. How are we showing up, being visible
Yeah.
in different ways, not just on video, but just in life?
Right.
And I said, okay, I want to talk to more women about that too, so that we can keep this going and just
Yes.
keep that spreading, because there are still people who are holding themselves back and they feel alone. They feel isolated. They feel like I'm the only one who feels this way. No, you don't. We've all felt this way. So we're all going to come together and do this together.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole visible thing came from. And so
love it.
that's what I'm stepping into. I'm still doing projects for companies who just want to hire to get a project done. But this whole visible concept, the group and the community and it'll be like yours, like a YouTube podcast combo, just to keep talking about it and to do it sounds cliche when you say, let's link arms, but it's like, no, let's do this
Please.
together because we need each other.
We
And I
do.
know those times where I felt alone and isolated from everybody else. And it's like, no, we got to do this together now. And if there are tools that we can help each other with, then we're going to do that.
Absolutely. Well, I talked about that last week in the intro about having to start to network and how I was so grateful for women, especially coming into my life and providing those opportunities. But again, if I had someone that word of mouth, recommended Brand House Andrea to me, who I started working with, who then referred you to me. And it's like,
Oh my God.
yeah, so we do need to link arms, because it's like when we have those connections, but I was trying to do all this stuff by myself for the longest time and getting nowhere. And you're right, like in total isolation, feeling like a failure. And then you have people like you that come into your life who see what you're doing, like add value and also like build you up, because like you have been a gift for me, like when things were going haywire and like, she was like just continuing to support me and encourage me, like just to keep going, and that the message was clear. And it was just like, Yeah, you helped a lot through those rocky, rough episodes where I was sending you the worst audio and things to have to
And it was like,
salvage.
and I was like, you know what? That's another illustration of like, you do it messy.
Yeah.
It
oh, I
doesn't
did.
have to be perfect. It's art. It's the way you do it. And when you allow yourself to look like it looks clunky or sounds like, it's like gives someone else permission to say, okay, it doesn't need it. What do
Yeah.
they say? 80% is better than 100% perfect, right?
Yeah.
80% done. It gives everybody else permission to relax a little bit. We all understand what we're trying to do here. We're not on network television working for NBC or something. That's different. Like if I have a client project,
Right.
I'm going to be a perfectionist as best I can. That's different.
Right.
But stuff like this, like, so I'm going out of town for this
Yeah.
this whole business / mindset group coaching thing that I'm a part of. Right?
Yeah.
And I can't wait because it's going to be a lot of inner
Oh.
work, even more. But when we were together back in December, doing the same thing, one of my biggest fears was going live on Instagram
Yeah.
because I felt so vulnerable. And after those few days out there at that group, I said, forget it. Makeup's melted off, sweaty mess. It's just crying. I'm going live right now.
Yes.
To do it. And I said, no, get out of your own way and just do it right now because you're feeling it.
Yeah.
And then when we did, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's not such a big deal at all. And someone said to me, I love the fact that you did that with no makeup on. You were gross and sweaty and messy and you were ugly crying.
Yep.
I'm so glad that you did it that way because you don't always have to try to put everything together,
Yeah.
And that was such a freeing thing for me to just will myself into doing that.
Well,
And even the group leader, I asked him to go live with me and he was like, he didn't even see that coming. And I said, I'm doing this to get out of my own fear.
Yeah.
It was busting on me.
And you do. Yeah. You have to take inspired action. When it hits, you got to go because ego will swoop in if you don't.
Oh, yeah.
And when you said that, it made me think I saw this, someone on Facebook had posted, she's a photographer and she was taking a picture of a little girl and she was like in her dance costume and the mom was so the video was of the mom and you could see the photographer down below and then the little girl in front of her. And the little girl was just giving her sass and popping her hip and it was adorable, right? Well, and then her mom goes, smile pretty, because smile normal, smile pretty. And all of a sudden the girl, like, you could just see it, like it was like, to me, her ego was like, oh, smile, like perform, stand up straight. And she did. She popped the perfect little dancer smile, lost like all of the spunk and personality. Like she looked picture perfect, but lost all of that like spunky, fiery, sassy, funny. It was like gone. And it makes me think like in that moment, you like brought that back and said, I don't need to have that picture perfect smile. Like I'm just going to show up and be me. And like, that sends such a powerful message to your inner child. Like, I just want to be you and accept you and bring out all of your amazing personality and your zest and your realness.
And yet literally allow yourself to be real. Because it's like, guess what? We don't all walk around with our makeup and our hair done all the time.
Oh, and
it's appreciate it.
People don't. You're like, oh my God, I don't have to be
I appreciate when other people do that. So I said, how about you do that too? And get out of your fear and know that it's not a big deal. And if it doesn't resonate with someone, they can change the channel.
Yeah, they're not your people.
It's okay. They can keep scrolling because it's not their thing. You don't have to be the thing for everybody.
No.
And that was another lesson that I learned too. Like, that's why there are different channels.
Right. Yeah. You can turn and I think about that too. Like I used to get in my head about things I would post in my stories, on Instagram and social media. And it's like, if that's bothering someone that's watching my stories, like you don't have to watch my stories. Like that is up to you. And if there's a reason that you are still, even though I trigger you, there is something inside you that is creating something about the way I'm living my life.
Yeah.
And I hope that you look at that.
Yeah.
Because there's a gift in that for you.
Right. I hope it helps you rather than exacerbate some sort of pain and you don't get through that. Like, So that's why I'm really excited to be like, okay, let's do this visible thing together.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how to use a camera or how to edit something, okay, those are the tasks that can be taught.
Yeah.
It's really about opening those chakras, using your voice. People, I've said this in one of the videos that I actually made. I said, people want to see your face and they want to hear your voice.
Yeah.
And you leave an energetic imprint.
Yes.
With your voice, especially. And you leave a legacy when you allow yourself to be on video. Like, so I said, I don't have videos of my mom really like speaking. I have a voicemail of hers, but it's gone now.
Oh.
we never decided to make a legacy video when I knew my mother had a terminal illness.
Oh,
And there are services that do that. And so I was
I never
talking to
even
someone, yeah, I was talking to someone about that yesterday. I said, I can be that person that can make legacy videos for families because I never had that done with my own mom. And boy, I wish I did.
Oh my
To sit her down
gosh.
because I had a conversation with her when she was literally in her deathbed.
Yeah.
And I said, did you enjoy your life? Was I a good daughter? Whatever. You can do that when they're still feeling
Oh.
well. I said, oh my gosh, I have the gift of knowing how to
Yes.
do that kind of thing. I'm going to do that for families if they want it.
I love
Because, so
that.
I said, okay, so if we can keep bringing our face out there and using our voice, boy, your kids are going to cherish that down the road, or
Yeah.
just because we exist, we have an imprint on this world. And it sounds so, whatever. Oh no, she's going to try to get deep. It's like, no, it's true. It's like when you leave that stuff behind,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll live on YouTube for years after, whatever. That's the gift behind all this stuff.
Right.
We have all these tools now. We have all this software and all these tools, and we can all connect with the world. So let's do it and get out of our own way.
Yeah.
And if we're feeling vulnerable and feeling like our ego is busted, oh, I don't like how I look. Oh, I look so heavy right now in this,
Yeah.
who cares?
Send them my way and I'll just finish out
Yes,
healing and then get them back on camera.
Yeah. There you go. There's your tag team. But it's like, yeah. And it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be messy, and it doesn't have to be this perfect video. Throw up your phone and do something that you feel, if you feel like doing it. And if you need support with someone like cheering you on,
Yeah.
that's what we're going to do.
I love it. So what
Yeah.
is it called again?
It's called Visible,
Visible.
and it's a group training for people who really want to learn how to do the basic things. And then if they want more, they can learn that. So it's going to morph into whatever people are asking me for help with. So I have a woman, she is a marketing manager at a large industrial corporation, and they want her to make videos for the company.
Yeah.
She said, I need to learn this stuff. So there's that part of it.
Yeah.
But there's also the part of it where it's like, well, how can we just get together and help each other through these
Right.
because
Because there's so much
mind games,
right? It's not even just the technical stuff. It's
how to feel comfortable on camera.
Yeah.
And the games that you can play to help yourself feel comfortable on camera. Or like, if I don't like how I look sometimes on camera, whatever, there's tricks, there's things you can do. There's the angle of the camera, there's light, there's editing. You can make it the way you want it. You can make your art the way you want it, but they don't know the tricks because they don't do it. So it's like, okay, I'm going to teach you the tricks. So, yeah, it's called Visible. And, I think I have a link to it on my LinkedIn
Well, yeah, we can
right now.
put it in the show notes so people can check it out.
I think it's in there because we're going to start at the end of August going into September.
Oh, this is perfect.
Yeah, we're going to do like 8 weeks together.
I love
And then
it.
I'll let people dictate how it goes, and then we'll see how it goes.
Well, and that's such a great way too, right? To let this evolve and let your intuition guide you on what these people need.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can think you know what someone needs, but everybody's different. So it's like, okay,
can
you
tell
tell
them, like,
me.
things are coming up. It's like, I need to pivot and I need to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
So
that's literally when we're at our best, is when we can trust that we're being guided. We will create the things we need to create when we need to create them because your intuition is guiding you. But ego will be like, no, we need to have it all mapped out right now. It's got to look perfect. Get the 8 weeks planned out. Well, then you're realizing like halfway through, like this isn't resonating with people because they have all these blocks and things.
Right. It's like, okay, I know how to put up my phone and touch a microphone, but I don't want to get on camera. It's like, okay, well, we need to talk about that first.
Yeah.
You do the things.
Yes. Well, and that's why Fiercely Focused was so successful for as long as it was, because I literally created that. I stayed like a week ahead, and I just was kind of getting the vibe of what they needed, and I would just try to stay ahead of it, and then ended up like creating this really amazing program that I was like, but if I would have, and normally old Tammy would have thought I need to have this all planned out. I need to have the curriculum all laid out. But because I let my intuition guide me, I was like, and there was things when I went through like my healing certifications, I was like, oh my gosh, that's in the program. And I didn't even know what this was. I was like, oh, crap. I'm like, talk about channeling, like
so good.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. And let them tell you what they need.
Yeah.
And then you meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's my intention behind it too.
Oh,
so yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
I know you're going to help so many women feel seen and feel heard.
I hope so. Okay. And I'm going to pull you in there too. I might have you speak to the group a little bit there.
I love that.
So yeah. And I might have you on my podcast too.
What's the podcast called?
Visible Women.
Visible Women.
Yeah.
I love it.
So just because I did start it with a friend of mine a couple of years ago and I loved the experience, it was just like this.
Yeah.
And I let it go because I let other things get in the way. And I said, you need to pick that back up because there is a reason why you did it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I know it inspires me like crazy, you know.
Yeah. Well, that's the
So-
thing. One of the things that light you up, like follow that. There's a reason for that.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna pull you along with me.
Awesome. I'm here. I'm here for the ride. I've been pulling you along, dragging you through this.
Oh,
so
no.
it's the least I can do.
Oh, it's so good.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your story and sharing parts, like opening yourself up to people to see, like, because you're right. If people would look at you and just assume you've got it all together and the perfect marriage and the perfect thing and the perfect,
Yeah, no.
and then and it limits what they think they can do. And so by you being vulnerable, it gives people permission to do the same and to be like, wow, she could do that. I can do that.
And if you can learn something new, because who knew I was going to be doing this?
Right.
10 years ago, literally,
Yeah.
10 years ago, I had no idea I would learn a whole new skill set
Right.
that can help companies and businesses
Yeah.
and people. And there's another thing, the identity thing. Like people
Yeah.
from my past probably thought, well, how is she doing this? This is completely different. You can learn new things.
You can reinvent yourself.
Yeah, you can learn new things in their 40s and 50s, and you can do a whole other thing.
Yeah. Like I mentioned on one of the podcasts, like I had inner child work was not on my radar 10 years ago, not even 4 years ago. Like it came into my life in 2021 and it was like right in my face. And then I've been immersed in it ever since, but it was not on my radar at all. But now I can see I was guided from that from the very beginning, like literally my entire childhood was, now you got it. We had to go through 41 years to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And experience is the teacher, and experience is what you pass on. And I know that I feel confident now speaking from experience. It's like, yes, I learned these things. Now I can teach someone else because I learned it. Not just the mental mindset stuff, but the technical stuff too.
Right.
You know?
Well, and realizing that there's going to be setbacks and what people quote unquote failures when you're allowing yourself the experience, but that's part of the experience to figure out what doesn't work. And so when you can start to embrace failure, is that trying new things isn't as scary. Your ego doesn't prevent you from trying because you're like, I'm just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
And here you are like, okay, now I've cleared enough things away that don't work and that don't light me up to find out what actually does.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we're trying to shine the light for more and more people, women especially, to do in their lives, and that you can change the course anytime. It is never too late. You are never too old. Like, so much is possible.
Yeah. And it's okay if it changes, and it's supposed to change.
Yeah.
You know, if you want it to.
Right.
You know? So yeah, thank you for letting me speak,
Open it up
and share.
Our very first email, I knew we were meant to work together because I don't know what you said. I was like, oh my gosh, she speaks my language. Like, instead of angel numbers, and I was like, her. So this is like, it's a beautiful full circle moment that we are actually able to speak together now, because I felt that from the very first email when I hadn't even met you yet. Like, yep, she's my person. So,
I love that so much. Thank you so much.
yes.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot wait for people to check out her podcast. I will post the link to check out her program if that's something that is kind of like nudging you a little bit. But either way, both of us are here to help inspire those of you out there to shine your light, to step into what lights you up, what brings you joy, and finding those little nuggets, even if it isn't like a whole life transformation, like find the little pieces of joy in your life. So, thank you for bringing me joy.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, until next week, I want to let Faith edit this episode now, and we're going to you to enjoy. So good. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Hey everyone, I'm going to hop in here real quick and give a shout out to F45, which is a studio here in Madison. And I think they're all over as well. But I was introduced to F45 by Andrea, who I've mentioned on here many times. And that's actually how I was able to connect with Faith. So Andrea saw Faith at the gym and they were talking, and she was mentioning how she was starting to edit podcasts, and Andrea knew I was looking for an editor, and voila, that's how that all happened. And through that community, I've gotten to know Faith and Heath, who we talked about in the episode, so much. And I'm just really loving the community and the workouts there. And so I wanted to give them a little shout out, because it's been a little piece of my life that I didn't realize that I was missing. For those of you that have listened to me You know that I love working out. It's a huge way that I move my energy, that I feel my emotions. And this has given me a different outlet than just like lifting heavy. Like I love lifting heavy. I love lifting by myself and feeling my feels and all of that kind of stuff. But there's been something different about being at F45 and doing those kinds of workouts with people doing the same kind of things. And so I just wanted to give people a little like, hey, did you even know this was here? Go try this, because it has been something I didn't really know that I was missing and that I still needed in my life. And it's just been a blessing. So they have this really cool promo right now. It's 7 days for $7, like for real, seriously. And trust me, those are going to be like some of the coolest 7 days of your life to be able to experience that and how the workouts just move so efficiently. I could go on and on about why I'm loving these workouts, because I don't have to think. I just get to show up and do the workouts and give my all. And it's been a really, really fun environment. So I just wanted to hop in here real quick, go check them out, take advantage of that deal. Let me know if you want to go and I will come work out with you, because if you're going to give me another excuse to work out, like, heck yeah, I'm going to take it. So hopefully I see you there.